Analysing the Union Budget 2016, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor said now even the government realises that the demands of the farm sector cannot be brushed aside. In a freewheeling chat with Nnis, Tharoor said the BJP-led NDA government has adopted many of the old policies of the UPA regime. He was quick to add that there is no clarity, however, in some areas. Tharoor said the BJP-led NDA government seemed to have learned from their own experiences and some of the criticism they had themselves voiced in previous years.
Budget, I think the government has finally woken up to the virtues of paying attention to the rural areas, the rural poor agricultural sector, which I think has much more to do with the elections coming up in a few states than it has to do with the coherent economic vision. Because the budget actually falls between two stools. On the one hand, trying to make the voters happy. On the other hand, trying to send a reassuring signal to the international markets. If you look at the tax collections, they're completely unrealistic. They're not going to get the taxes they want. As it is, the bulk of the taxation is indirect taxes. Things like extra excise duties on your petrol, which means that the Aam Aadmi is actually paying for the government to meet its fiscal deficit numbers. What happens if oil prices go up? They're again in very serious trouble. If you look at the actual numbers that are coming through, in many cases, they have not been able to fulfill them. The disinvestment targets are never met. Last year, they said they would make 69,000 crores from disinvestment, from selling assets in PSUs. Instead, they could only make 18,000 crores. Despite this dose of cold water from the markets, they've actually come up and said again this year they're going to raise 56,000 crores. How is this going to happen? So my worry is that these numbers are not adding up.
BJP stalwarts, including L.K. Advani, lauded the general budget, but the Congress gave it a thumbs down, saying it was high on rhetoric and lacked imagination.
They've cut money from education, they've cut money from agriculture, they've cut money from infrastructure, they've cut money in a number of key areas, fertilizer subsidies. Even the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister saying that the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme is the highest ever allocation. They have increased it from their low of last year, but it is not as high as our numbers in 2010-11 in the UPA government. And with inflation, those numbers would actually even be higher, so the shortfall is even greater. So we're looking at some very disappointing cuts as well. And then some of their policy decisions, for example, telling the salaried worker now that 60% of his provident fund and pension money, if he withdraws it, he has to pay tax on it. Now, right up to now, this has been basically tax-free. It's your money, you've saved it, you pull it out in an emergency, build a house or have some medical expenses, something urgent, something important, you can take it out. Now you can't. If you do it, you have to pay tax on it now. So these are things that are not very friendly to the common man of India. And I do worry a little bit about where all this is going. I'm glad that now they are actually raising some extra money for Swachh Bharat. Similarly, they have raised money for MREGA, as I mentioned earlier. On top of that, they are putting in a lot more money into roads and highways. That's one sector that seems to be going all right. And I must say I'm very touched by the gesture of bringing in piped LPG connections to poor rural women to cook. Because when you see these women in their small huts, with the smoke coming from their chulas, from their wood fires or coal fires or cow dung fires, you know that they are harming their lungs very seriously, shortening their lifespans. So if truly we can move India away from that to LPG, it will be terrific. But then if you have policies that don't give these poor people enough money to have the purchasing power to buy food, then what is the point of giving them LPG? What are they going to cook with it? So these are all very important questions that I think this budget has left unaddressed.
Earlier, Jaitley presented the budget for the next fiscal, listing out 9 priority areas for the government, and this included the social sector, fiscal discipline and tax reform.
Have not been fulfilled. What happened to the Expenditure Reforms Commission Mr. Jaitley promised in the first budget? What happened to the Setu scheme for self-employment or the AIM scheme for the Atal investment mission? All of these things, frankly, I have not seen one paise given to it, and now they don't mention it again. So every year you make announcements. If you don't fulfill them, how is the nation supposed to take you seriously?
Powered by Nnis.